Hi team, this is George. Can you believe it? We're in week 3. This time has gone by extremely fast. I hope you're getting something from the content and enjoying the overall learning experience. So, what I do want to say is I appreciate all the effort that you're putting in, especially to the discussion questions and our overall learning process here, because in the questions you're diving way below just the surface level and you're getting into some great conversation. So I appreciate that effort that you're putting in to dive down deeper into those discussions. So let's jump into week 3 here, and let's talk about Lencioni and his first quote that we see right as we get into our classroom. And like a chain with just one link broken, teamwork deteriorates even if a single dysfunction is allowed to flourish. I would imagine, I would be willing to bet that we all have some stories that speak directly to that. Whenever we're one piece person is broken in within our team, within our organization, it starts to erode everything around it. So we have to be very vigilant about that. And in our questions, excuse me, in our discussions, we're going to be tackling that with the company playbook right here. The company playbook is what we're going to be using here. We're going to develop it in this first discussion question, and we're going to have to answer, why do we exist? How do we behave? What do we do? How will we succeed? What is important right now? And who must do what? And what I really appreciate about this is that within the playbook, we're going to be looking at one of my favorite parts and pieces of our whole text right here. Our quadrant, so you have to build a cohesive leadership team, create clarity, over communicate clarity, and then reinforce clarity. So do you see the trend? Clarity, clarity, clarity. And this is important for the mere fact that within an organization, we build organizational constructs. Just like we do as society, we build societal constructs. And all that means for our organization is we have a belief system or a way of thinking. So we think a certain way about something. That may be, can we get this new contract? We think we could think that way. Is it possible for us to get this contract? Well, our social constructs or our organizational constructs towards that will define quite readily if we are able to accomplish getting that new contract or what may be happening with that contract. We could lose very well. And in here, in this video, right here, oh, there we go. In the video right here, organizational health, or the thematic goal, thematic goal is Lencioni talks directly about that. And he talks about how leadership has to create that vision and use this playbook to create that vision, because you'll notice that like the points he brings up are soldiers on a rescue mission, firefighters in an emergency, police in an emergency situation. There are no silos built there. There are no me first attitudes. It's all about the mission. And this paper here, or this playbook here, can get us working all towards that mission, because when we have an organization that is split because of the lack of clarity, guess what? The mission suffers. So we have to be able to focus our organization on the mission. And when we're able to focus our organization on the mission, guess what? All the social constructs come into place, because we start redeveloping what those constructs are. So let's say we have a massive contract bid in 10 months down the road. Well, for that 10 months, our focus, our extreme focus, if you will, is going to be on winning that contract. Everything else will stay in order, but our focus for our mission and to create the social constructs we need to win that contract are winning the contract. And we have to use the clarity that we saw in my favorite quadrant there of that Lencioni created. We have to clarity, clarity, clarity. You have to have a cohesive leadership team, communicate with so much clarity that it's ridiculous, and then you have to reintroduce clarity every single step along the way. So when we do that, you then create a mission first sort of social organizational construct. And that's what we need to do, because the mission does come first for our organization. And when we do that, we've just created a team that works together, and we don't create silos. We don't have a me first sort of attitude that happens. And we talked about also in organizational health, actually, Lindsay only talked about what if you're not a CEO. What he's talking about, speaking upward, kindly speaking upward. I know when I first started in the working world, I would speak upward, and it was not so kind, because I would readily tell people what was wrong and what they could do better. And you know how we all love to hear how we're doing things wrong. We just love to hear how insanely ignorant we are. That's just a great way to start a conversation. So I learned how to say things more appropriately, so they actually get listened to. Because if you speak from a more of a Christ-centered perspective, where we're speaking out of love and growth to whoever the executives are, or whoever may be just right above us. When we speak from that sort of perspective, people tend to listen, because they know we're speaking for the greater good of our organization. And when we're able to do that, things do change. So take a moment to reflect on the practices that you have when you speak kindly upwards. So as you do that, you probably do it much better than I did when I first started. You probably have a lot of experience speaking upward and speaking into what you can influence. Because remember, just because we don't have control over something, doesn't mean that we don't have an influence. And the way we influence that is by speaking kindly and focusing on where we should be. So speak through that kindly. If you always focus on the negative of what's going on, that's what people are going to come to expect, and they're going to build that construct as well about the person who always speaks negatively. And then we also have the Steve Jobs video, which I'm going to attach another video as well that has shows Steve Jobs replying to it was a rude engineer, or somebody asked him a fairly rude question. He had a fantastic response to it, and that's going to bring us to creating a learning experience. So in our signature assignment, we have to create it says teach the subject. Let's take a look at it right here. It says right here, as we go into it for our signature assignment, teach the topic. Well, I want to challenge you to take that one step further. Instead of teaching the topic, let's create a learning experience. We're teaching the topic. What does that mean to you? Is that a lecture? Is that how they engage with the materials? Is it an interactive video, maybe interactive, something where they push things and test it and assess and everything else? So think past just the teaching experience, the teaching a topic, and think more towards a learning experience. Because when we talk about learning, here's our learner. I don't know if I can fit that. Okay, learner. And we need to attach multiple ways that they can engage with the topic. So if we're thinking about maybe interactive video here, maybe some type of assessment here, what is their experience going to be? Because we've all probably seen the really, really poor experience where it's just PDF, or if it's face-to-face, it's just an instructor reading from the slides. So we want to create an entire experience that bridges the gap. So here's our learner. It's a fantastic drawing, because I am an amazing artist. And here's our content and school and everything else right here. Well, there's a gap, and we want to close that gap. That's called transactional distance. And we want to close that distance because we want everybody to feel a part of the greater whole, just like what Lencioni talked about with the mission. Our mission when we're creating this learning material is to bridge that transactional distance. And that happens whether we're online, face-to-face. You deal with it differently when you're face-to-face, but there's always a little bit of distance. Let's say if we're at a satellite campus, if we're at even the main campus or wherever we are. We need to do things that build, as we said last week, a relationship for that learner. So I want you to challenge yourself and see how you're going to bridge this transactional distance and build a relationship for the learner. Remember, the relationship goes from the instructor to the learner both ways, goes from the curriculum to the learner back and forth, because that's how they experience it as well. And it also goes from learner to learner. So I appreciate all you're putting into this. We have that live session on Tuesday, so I look forward to seeing those who can make it. Remember, that's always just an option. So if you're not able to make it, I will make a valiant effort to record it. Hopefully it does. And we'll see you there if you can make it. If not, have a fantastic week.